In 2014, there was a shooting at Florida State University. You likely haven't heard about it, but it's an important case with quite serious implications. The university became the scene of a shooting that barely made the news. 3 students shot, 1 seriously injured, and the attacker? A respected attorney who left behind a trail of paranoid delusions, or perhaps he was tormented by something real. Despite this horrifying attack, there isn't actually that much information on it, which is kind of bizarre. And the media didn't actually hover around this story for very long, if at all. Even weirder, most people don't even know it happened. This story that I looked into got so weird that it began to open up rabbit holes I never knew existed. Something I found actually quite disturbing. Gang stalking. On November 30th, it's around midnight. A quiet night. The FSU Strozier Library is breathing with life, as around 300 students are studying for their exams. The Strozier Library is the intellectual heart of the Florida State University, housing over 3 million volumes, including special collections and digital archives, which creates a common studying area for people across multiple disciplines. But that night, someone had something else planned. As the students are studying, a man walks in at around 12:05. However, he doesn't exactly look like a student. The man's name is Myron, a 31-year-old lawyer who had previously graduated from FSU. As he walks across the lobby to the main study area, right past the security desk, he tries to break through the security turnstiles. It jams as it only allows students and staff with identification cards to pass through. May then walks back past the security desk again, and yet the security guard is completely oblivious to it, still setting up her station as she arrived late to her shift, with the previous guard leaving his station before the replacement arrived. May leaves the building, seemingly confused as he wasn't able to get access. Then after around 15 minutes of standing outside of the library, the main glass doors, he gets out a .38 caliber handgun, and that's when all hell breaks loose. May begins to open fire. He is seen shooting at random students, without a care for who they are. The numerous shots can be heard echoing right through the library, as students get spooked and begin to take cover. May first shoots at the back of a student leaving the building, with the bullet lodging itself in the books of the victim's backpack. The second target is someone called Farhan Ronnie Ahmed. He hits Ahmed twice. One of the shots hits Ahmed's spine, while another hits Ahmed in the upper right arm, tearing right through his torso and collapsing his lung. He continues to blast his gun at several victims outside, grazing 2 more students before entering the library again. This is the security footage shortly after the first few shots, walking around the security desk as he points his gun at 2 of the student library workers hiding from him. The 2 workers are curled up behind the front desk in terror after hearing the loud bangs outside. May looks directly at one of them, Nathan Scott, who desperately pleads with May not to shoot. But without any delay, May points his gun and shoots Nathan in the leg. Then as he attempts to shoot the other library worker behind the front desk, his gun jams. May leaves as he walks around aimlessly, as if he's not even sure what's going on or what he's going to do next. Injured and bleeding, Nathan Scott bravely runs into the library and warns other workers that a gunman was on the loose. The students are seen scrambling as May walks around looking for more victims, firing random shots at them. When May fails to get through the security turnstiles to the main studying area, he walks off and leaves the library lobby. Within minutes of the shooting, the lobby is filled instantly with responding officers armed with guns ready to take out May. They find him shortly after on the access ramp near the library entrance and order him to drop his weapon. May refuses and responds by firing a shot at the officers. A shootout ensues. May and the officers are now in a standoff that went from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. Myron, May and the officers exchange 30 rounds during the entire shootout, as students are seen scrambling around, barricading themselves and looking for cover, wondering what the heck is going on. The gunfire abruptly ends as May collapses to the floor. The officers have successfully taken control of the situation, a bizarre one at that. Myron May had taken a total of 24 bullets and was pronounced at the scene. During the entire shooting, he had shot 3 victims, one of which was severely injured. Elijah Velez was struck but luckily not critically injured, who was extremely lucky. The library employee who was hit in the leg, Nathan Scott, was discharged shortly after being hospitalized at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. Luckily, he has no lasting side effects from this shooting, other than 3 titanium screws in his hip. The final victim, however, Farhan Ronnie Ahmed, the student struck in the spine. His injuries are so severe that he can no longer walk. He's paralysed from the waist down. The bullets are still inside his body, and he also has an unworkable right hand. The bullets are still lodged inside Ahmed's body, one of which was just 4 centimeters away from his heart. Years later, Ronnie Ahmed had actually got tattoos of the x-rays of the injuries. The tattoos show his fractured humerus bone, 2 broken ribs, and the injured spinal cord. The bullets still in his body were also tattooed. A student who was just studying in the library, and his entire life has changed in a blink of an eye. A complete tragedy that might have been avoided. The whole ordeal is just completely weird.
We've had investigators obviously working since 12:30 this morning, since the incident occurred, and as more details emerge, we'll continue to share that information with everybody, and we'll share as much information as possible as it becomes available.
It puzzled investigators and authorities. There was no indication of what the motives actually were. No one knew who these students were to May, and there's no real understanding of what could have brought an established lawyer to do something so crazy and violent. Authorities looked through Myron May's vehicle parked near the library and found a 12-gauge shotgun inside. The information of why he felt the need to do this was still baffling the authorities who were investigating this case. People wanted answers. But that's when investigators found Myron May's phone. May had been using his phone during the entire shooting, and inside were a series of texts between him and a friend arguing about May having schizophrenia. And when they looked even deeper, they find that Myron May had mailed packages to 10 people before carrying out the planned shooting. Myron May was a confusing character, if at first he seemed like the average man. Prior to the shooting, Myron May was actually an established lawyer. He earned a law degree from Texas Tech after graduating from Florida State University. He was a smart guy, but had a rough start in life with a spotty relationship with his parents, who seemingly abandoned him from childhood. During his time holding positions of both prosecutor and defender, Myron May frequently changed jobs, which meant he often left positions after quite short tenure. To those around him, Myron May was the ideal young lawyer. Hardworking, caring, and deeply philosophical, if a quiet person, but he meant well with everything he did, and to people around him, he had a good heart. He was respected by peers and friends, and earned as much as $160,000 in the jobs that he worked. There was no history of violence, no criminal record, nothing that even hinted at what was coming to him in life. But in Myron May's final months, something had changed. A subtle but growing unease took root in him. He became withdrawn, paranoid, somewhat delusional. When investigators looked through the text messages on his phone after the shooting, they found back and forth messages between him and his friend about him having schizophrenia. They looked deeper as to what was going on with Myron May and what these messages must have meant, and it turns out that his mental health took a severe decline in the months leading up to the shooting. He believed he was being watched by the government and that his thoughts were being monitored while being targeted by directed energy weapons. His relationships with friends and his girlfriend broke down as his mind descended into the abyss. It turns out that his girlfriend had actually reported him to the police for showing up at her home, rambling and handing her a part of his SUV, claiming that it was a camera watching him. She explains to the officers that he had been diagnosed with a severe form of ADHD, which he was medicated for, but had subsequently developed a severe mental disorder. When authorities looked through Myron May's home, they found a half-full bottle of hydroxyzine, a medication that treats anxiety disorders. It also appeared that in the September leading up to the shooting, May had checked himself into a mental health treatment facility, then being released just 4 days later. The investigators then find out that Myron May had mailed 10 packages to people, messages that detailed his experiences of being watched, that he believed he was a targeted individual, a victim of something called gang stalking. Gang stalking is defined as a set of beliefs in which those affected believe they are being followed, stalked, and harassed by a large number of people, typically by the government, and hear not only voices, but see people following them no matter where they go. They call themselves targeted individuals, TIs for short, and there are huge numbers of people that believe that this is happening to them. So much so that there are websites, Facebook groups, Telegram groups, Reddit groups, and meetups dedicated to those who apparently suffer from this phenomenon, with hundreds of thousands of people who believe that they are the targeted individual of the government. Myron May was unfortunately one of these people, who was also part of the targeted individual Facebook group, of which you have to actually pay money to join. He also had made a very long series of YouTube videos detailing what he believed happened to him, where he believed he was being watched, spoken to, and hit with directed energy weapons. And on November 14th, he made a post on the Facebook group for targeted individuals. Has anyone ever been encouraged by your handler to with the promise of freedom? This post on its own demonstrates the level of distress that Myron May must have been in. There was no indication that he was even an evil or bad person, but this post showed he had lost all control, not just of his well-being, but of his entire life. There isn't actually that much information to go on with this specific case, but it's definitely opened up a rabbit hole in its own right. Why wasn't there much information to go around in the first place? The reports that we do have do indicate that Myron May had some sort of form of mental illness, and he likely suffered from a severe form of paranoid schizophrenia that accompanied his ADHD. But I want it to be clear that this is not a formal diagnosis, nor will he ever get one. Tormented by voices that slowly grew until he lost all control of his mind, definitely sounds like he was living in hell before his final moments. And while I don't think the phenomenon of gang stalking is untrue in itself, as there have been recorded attempts by intelligence agencies to target and torment individuals in the past, it's unlikely that Myron May was the subject of such targeting. He was most likely the victim of a mental health crisis and lost all control of his life, taking others with him. A man that had lost his mind and tragically went crazy, and leaving a student with the inability to walk. I hope this tragic shooting gets more awareness, and it brings more awareness to mental health crises, but it also needs to bring more awareness to the topic of gang stalking, as there's barely any spotlight shone on this phenomenon. It seems like such an important subject matter that hundreds of thousands of people believe they are suffering from. As for you, the audience, you can decide for yourselves as to what happened to Myron May. After all, nobody truly knows what happened to him, not even May himself.